Jim Fannon Show with Rob Berry, formerly of Bleu Bistro. He's got a new gig coming up. We're going to talk about that, life, and whatever else we want. Oh, I always cut it too soon. There you are, Rob Berry. How are you, brother?
I'm good.
Thanks for coming in. It's been a while, man. And I was just saying to you, I don't know you that well. There's something about your face, though, man. When I met you at the bistro and the food, you know, there's one way to a man's heart, right? Through his,
definitely.
Through his stomach. And I don't know how to say it any more than you're a wish in the kitchen, man. Your creativity and then your face is so kind, and then you're talking to you. I know you're in a business setting, so you want everyone to like you, but you're just instantly likable. And then I remember I referred Jacob Bergsma to you, maybe get some website stuff done, and he's a guy that I got a fondness for too. Just a good man, and so I do enough of my bullshit monologue, political talk, and I've been really looking forward to this, and this week I've got more people-focused interviews coming up, so I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a huge fan, and I'm excited about what you got coming up, and I'm excited to hear your story, because I think a lot of people, it's like you're saying, well, what do you want to talk to me for? I'm like, dude, well, come on. You've been through the ringer the last few years. We all have been recently with COVID, and I know you're recently widowed, and that's, man, I can't even imagine. I didn't know your wife, but I was a customer of hers at Massage for Health. Is it called?
Health and Body Works.
Health and Body Works, and we were just talking about Christine Mango. What an angel! Just, you want deep tissue massage, or you got something ailing you, she'll hurt you, 100%. But she'll work it out.
It's really good.
So just take a few minutes anyways, Rob. Again, appreciate your time to tell anyone that might not know who you are all about, where you came from, how you got to this point, where you're from. And just take as much time as you need to talk about who Rob Berry is.
Okay.
No pressure.
Yeah, usually I really don't like talking about myself too much. I really don't know where to start. Like how far do you go back? I only remember some things at 2 years old, but I really can't go back anywhere beyond there. But
yeah, it'll be inspirational anyway.
No, well, I'll just start with the food type thing. I've loved cooking for as long as I could possibly remember, and sort of got into that with my grandparents. And like, my grandmother always cooked. She made bread. She did everything, really. She would try to
nationality?
She was part German, but not like sort of. She didn't come over from Germany, but I think maybe her her grandparents did.
So you're Canadian many generations, then.
Yeah, basically 100. Yeah. So there was really no German being spoke that I've ever heard. I don't even know if she knew how to speak German, right? So I don't know, but it's she just had this love of cooking, and I think for anybody who has that love, there's people who have the most important thing, which is their palate. Right, and that's what sets dishes apart. You can have as much skill as you want, but if you don't have a palate or put the love into it, it's your best tool in your toolbox. And I think it's just about creating something and sharing it, which I think is a joy. So when you were talking about coming to the restaurant, and I just want to have fun, and the staff that I had there, they were there for a long time.
Oh, you had the same girls? Usually in those type of places you see a heavy rotation of talent on the floor as far as serving goes, but your girls were always the same, to the point where I'd call and they go, yeah, Jim, I know the corner you want. I'm like, I don't care where you put me, just don't put me in the middle or by the door. I like off to the corner or something like that. So yeah, I got wise on it, and make a reservation if you don't want to be disappointed.
Yeah, and to me it was just, we had a ton of laughs. Every once in a while you get a little burr, and a little but it was very short lived, and then back at it. And so, but it was lots of laughs in a very family type environment when it comes to staff, where as I know their parents and chat with their parents, and it's a really good it's a good vibe, I guess.
So are you a St. Catharines guy? You've been here your whole life type of thing, or?
Yeah, I was born and raised in, born in St. Catharines at the General Hospital, which I'm sure everybody was back in the early 70s, and raised in Thorold.
Oh, okay.
So then eventually left, went out west, went to school in Calgary as an apprentice, and then just worked at a place called Emerald Lake Lodge out in the Rocky Mountains.
You go to school for culinary?
I did, yeah. So just sort of did that and put my heart and soul into it, and eventually came back here getting ready to travel somewhere else. And I ended up getting a job and meeting a girl and staying here. Like,
yeah, I used to call, and I go, what's the place out on, is it Ontario Street in Beamsville? They got a really good breakfast place in that strip plaza down a little Victoria Avenue.
Oh yeah,
what's that place called?
I always forget what it's called, but I know what you're talking about.
And I used to refer to your place as the Wellington Court of Breakfast. My cousin's Eric Peacock, so I mean it's flattering for both of you, I think. But Eric is just creative beyond measure and talented. And then, you know, as you're talking, I'm thinking of the last time somebody called me an artist. I'm like, artist? Yeah, Jimmy, like, come on, you're a show host. You know, how's that any different from somebody that sings and gets on stage? I go, well, let me tell you, anybody can do what I'm doing, but I guess maybe not. But, you know, I used to call it the Wellington Court of Breakfast because it was just, and then as you're talking, I'm thinking, this is my self-expression. And it means so much because if you swallow your truth or swallow your expression, it just manifests as disease, I believe. So getting it out there and with the idea that maybe somebody will be inspired by it. And then as you're talking, I'm thinking, this is your art. This is how you express yourself. This is how you give love to strangers, is by putting yourself into your dishes and watching their face, or, you know, the comments on the way out the door, which I imagine are mostly positive.
Yeah, it's, I think there's people who have a need to create, and I think everybody has it. Some people maybe have it as a hobby, and some people usually sometimes do it as a profession. And getting into business for me wasn't about, hey, I'm going to make a lot of money, because in fact, the reality is you don't. You usually put in like at least almost double the hours what other people are, and you're making less money. But at the end of the day, there's something about creating, something about having a vision and seeing that vision come to fruition and putting all the time and energy into it, and trying to sit there and I don't think when you don't look at the sort of dollar value of things and you look at what you're creating and then you try to make that an experience and you are fair with what you're charging, I think that's the ultimate recipe to make a success in something like that.
Yeah, I think you're talking about working for someone else, but then when you're the entrepreneur, there's some thin margins in food, lots of waste, and you got a lot of overhead and stuff like that. This is not a get rich. You know, I mean, it takes you to get to a level where you're really doing well. I mean, you're going to have to be established for decades and have a clientele that, you know, you couldn't produce that type of clientele at the Blue Turtle. There's just not enough room to make you could be packed all day and have steady seating, but you can't possibly have the numbers to create a profit that you could, you know, be rich on.
Right. The challenge with that was always, would I be able to hire somebody else to do what I do and to take a break from it? And the reality was, there's not enough meat left on the bone. Like it wouldn't be.
Your profit is your wage almost.
Well, yeah, there was no profit. Like it was, you make a wage and your wage is fluctuating. So it all depends how it comes, and then things just get thrown your way and you got to deal with them. And, you know, like it's just the way things are. Cost of goods.
So what happened with the Blue Turtle? Was it just like life took over with your wife's sickness and stuff like that? Is that why you shut that down in the beginning, or? Yeah,
it was to shut it down and regroup, and I just couldn't regroup as quick as I wanted to. So I kept leasing the space. Before she passed, I just wanted to spend time with her.
Yeah. So how long ago was it now?
She passed away December 20th, 2016.
Wow, that long, eh?
Yeah, it's still just
flies by, man.
Yeah, and you just look at it and
it was 10 years for my mother, and I swear it was yesterday. We're hanging out sometimes. You know, sometimes it feels like 100 years, sometimes it feels like yesterday. So
100%. And the one thing I find is that those you have a lot of emotions of joy when you look back on things, but sometimes you get those ones of hurt. It never goes away. You know, that intensity of that sadness sometimes is it's there. Like it'll hit you at the weirdest times. Like I'm sure I'm driving down the road sometimes and I'll have an emotion hit me, and all of a sudden I'm just gutted, bawling, driving down the road, and I'm like, I wonder what these people are thinking about looking at me right now through this.
I'm having a little emotional breakdown all by myself here.
Yeah.
You know, I know what you mean, man. I'm a long way from that now because I've never been much of a crier, but my mother just broke me, you know, for many reasons. And yeah, I mean, there was, you know, you feel like a weirdo, but you're sitting at a light and out of nowhere, it just pours on you. You're like, 100%. Man, it's really difficult driving and crying at the same time.
You get kind of good at it after a while. I would have those emotions actually before she passed, because you try these things creep in your head and you try to push it out as much as possible. But the reality is you can try to push it out as much as possible. It's coming.
Yeah. You can't hold it back forever.
No.
So it was a matter of spending time with her when you first closed it down, because she was still around, right?
I had a week. It was very sudden. Like, not. She was trying different chemos, and she was to try a new chemo on. She passed away on the 20th, which I think was the day she was to start a new chemo. But it was just happened to be on Monday. She woke up and she was not very coherent, and just really wouldn't move, and went to bed that night, and she didn't wake up in the morning.
Wow.
So it was I think it was, she ended up contracting she got diagnosed with cancer on May 10th in 2012, which was unfortunately her birthday.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was a long fight, and she was in remission for about 8 months or so, and I think just the amount of chemo and all the treatments just finally caught up and sort of.
Yeah, my mother said she'd never take that shit. You know, she watched Frank Prantera's father, Sam, go through that, and she was always of the opinion that quantity, not quality, or quality, not quantity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I remember having the conversation with her, like, it was almost selfish of the family to want to prolong this man's life so that they could spend more time with him. Meanwhile, he was in a miserable state. I don't know too much about Sam's, but that's kind of how we envisioned it or talked about it. I'm not saying, you know, anything about the family, but this is what we all go through. And I remember bringing her back from Travinsky for one of her many treatments. They misdiagnosed her here in Niagara, right? They missed what cancer it was. It was in her lungs, but it wasn't the primary cancer. It started in her kidneys, and they completely missed it. So I don't know if she had different types of cancer, but whatever. As soon as they opened her up, then it went straight to her brain. She had 100 lesions on her brain. So she was getting radiation, cobalt or whatever for her brain lesions. I remember coming back from Travinsky, taking her for one of her things, and she looked at me, and she was like a little girl. She says to me, you know, it's weird to have your mother recess that far in fear, you know, that she was like a little child. And I'm driving, and she looks at me, and she says, you agree with what I'm doing? I'm like, yeah, Ma, whatever. Absolutely. And she looked at me, and this breaks my heart. She looks at me and she says, well, if it's my only chance to live, I might as well take it. And I think that's how they get you. She took the oral chemo.
Right.
And it destroyed her. The blisters inside the mouth and hands and feet. And just, it was disgusting the way she went down. And then we managed to get her into hospice. They were very, very generous there. And then I couldn't believe the level of care that those people provided there. It was unreal. I remember telling one of the girls and then saying, hey, we just do what we do for our own parents, you know, and she died in her arms. It was strangely beautiful, you know. as being the older brother, the oldest sibling, I was the one charged. Well, I go into leadership mode when crisis hits. It's just how I'm wired. And you know, we're waiting for Steffi to come home. She was my ex-girlfriend at the time, former fiance, and she was hanging on. And I remember lying my ass off to her on her deathbed saying, Steffi's home. Don't worry about it. You know, all the estate's been taken care of. We're done. I said, you can go. And she got coherent for a few minutes, and after that, it was just like I'd given her permission to go.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how they hang on, man, because they're hanging on because my son's here. Like, I'm not going to die in front of my son. And it's amazing how the human spirit will keep your heart going when nothing else is working, you know? But
absolutely.
It was strangely to have your mother die in your arms. I don't know how it was beautiful, but it was a strange beauty to it because she just gave up and she was gone, and then life continues, you know? So
yeah. Well, I'm sure during this COVID time when you get people who are passing away alone and stuff like that and can't be seen, like I think that's the other side you don't want to go. Like when my wife Adrienne passed, it was I called everybody. So family, friends came over. Everyone got to say their goodbye. So when she didn't wake up in the morning, I don't think I actually called the funeral home to come pick her up till around 5. So there was a lot of people in the house, and it was good. It was really good. Yeah. And so everyone got to see her, and everyone got to sort of bound together, and you know, it was a good thing. And to me, that's a
powerful
beautiful
closure, right?
It is.
Yeah, and without that, I mean, we all know so many people. You know, I was just talking to a guy today, it's a longtime friend, and he was talking about all the political division we all seem to be victim of these days, especially if you're on the right, you're a monster, you know, because you have to toe the party line. And he's like, even my grandmother, we got into it over Israel, and she had this thing, and you know, it's like you were talking, you have facts and they have an opinion. You can't argue with somebody with an opinion if they won't take the facts, you know. And that's what he's saying. She died, and bullshit, even though she was as much to blame. Yeah, I'm putting words in his mouth, but yeah. And we forget, you know, I heard a horror story of a guy that, you know, a guy in a home that took his life. He jumped out his window. He wrote a letter saying, you know, I haven't seen my family in 6 months. Forget this. And those are the stories you don't hear. They're like, wear your mask, shut the economy down, no dining, no dining. Like, they're ruining people's lives. And, you know, I firmly believe that the shutdown, the lockdown, and the effects on our mental health and our leaning on drugs and alcohol right now are going to kill far more people than this disease will. But it's a strange time right now, man. Yeah, we very seldom hear the horror stories, like the one guy jumping out his window and stuff like that, or the suicides. You know, the news doesn't talk about them, right? Or the drug addiction, or the lack of mental health, or something. So it's strange times, and you know, I don't know why I was looking forward to this interview so much, because in these strange times, I want to find some hope. You know, here's a guy that, like, fuck, he got young. He's 13 years old now. So, but yeah, he was young, too young to lose his mom. And you wonder, God, what the hell? What the hell did I do? You know?
Well, it's the conversation. So after shutting down closing the turtle down right before she passed, I kept it shut down for a while. There's always choices to make, and for me, I could have kept working and paid for extra care and passed my son off to a bunch of different people, but for something like that, because he was just 9 turning 10, and I wanted to be there for any time he had an emotion. I wanted to be the one right there. Mm-hmm. So you either spend your time to make money, or you spend money for time, and that's unfortunately this world. Those are your two options, and I chose the latter and spend money for time, and to me it was the greatest decision. And because we would talk, and because he has his things, and especially like to me, Christmas has always been a special time, and it is for my son as well. And seeing my wife pass away 5 days before Christmas, he still loves Christmas. But then you see all the movies, and it's kids sitting with their mom. It's everyone doing everything with their mom, and there's a lot of that Mother's Day, and it's just, he's a kid, you know. He's like, why did she have to go? And it's like, we're just lucky to have known her.
Yeah, and
like,
I was gonna say, it's hard to. Well, sometimes not so hard. Sometimes the beauty of something so tragic like a death, you can't escape for some reason. You know, when I was with Steffi, her uncle Aldo Mantini, you know, Wellsprings, you know, his sister picked up on that as a cancer support center, because there was nothing when Aldo was alive. You know, there was no support center. Yeah, you had to go to Hamilton for treatment and stuff like that, but there was no outreach or programs for people or family members that were suffering of the loss of them. And I was fortunate enough to be at Aldo's bed when I think I was in the hallway. The family was beside the bed, but it was weirdly beautiful. Like, I mean, and he was a real character, and he's saying, "You look after my angel, and if you don't, I'll haunt you forever." So I hope I did a good job. I'm not haunted, but I mean, she's married and got a kid and all that kind of stuff, and she's still my little girl to some extent. You know, I never talked to her, but it was a weirdly beautiful, and they're all very Italian. So the bond was so tight and stuff like that. And so sometimes you can't get away from the beauty, and you think, well, this is weird. How can I find something so tragic beautiful? But, you know, have you or your son, what's your son's name? Riley, is there you see any blessings or anything kind of silver linings that, well, I know you'd trade everything to have her back, but like, anything that, because I hear your positivity saying, I'm just glad to have known her and spent that time with her. Same with my mom. She died at 61. I feel a little ripped off, but you know, when you're 8, like I can't imagine not growing up bitter. You know,
the one thing I tell him, and that, you know, like for myself as well, is that when someone dies, it doesn't take their love away. It's still there. It's still something to draw from. It's not like the love just went. They looked at you, they loved you. You can't take that away.
Yeah.
You can't take that away from your grandparents. You can't take that away from anybody who's special in your life. To me, it's always a source of something to draw from. It's like when I idolized my grandparents, and my grandfather's work ethic was like just so phenomenal, and what the time he took to do something right. I obviously do that in my stuff, and I still draw from that. I still draw from the experience with him. I still draw from his strength. Like he went to World War II. He came back, and I sit there and I go, you know what? When things need to be done, I'll draw from that. And I think that when people are in your lives, they give you certain things. And I know that I have a friend who was recently, he was teaching in Ecuador, and he was on a mountain bike. He just went over the smallest hill and became a quadriplegic just like that.
Wow.
And so him and his family are now back here, and he's here, but they were teaching, and he has 2 young kids, and they were like friends of Adrian, like, you know, before I met her, and they were like, you know, how she conducted herself and handled it with such positivity and strength, and how she just wouldn't let anything beat her down, and she was still just a beauty. She's one of the nicest people I've ever met in my entire life. And that's what was a constant, like
the contrast between you and her was a struggle all the time, right?
Well, no, not really that. We had different, we have different ways of doing things at time, but no, it was always awe-inspiring for me. But when he said, like, that's an inspiration for him, and he drew from that. So he drew from knowing Adrian and fighting with what he does. So when he started going through his recovery, he was like, all right, I got a bowl of Cheerios for breakfast. I'm just going to tip it over and try to flip my Cheerios over because I have some movement. And then now he was able to do that with nuts and bolts, and he had to retrain his body, right? He's a very smart guy anyways, like with how your spine works and everything, and sending, you know, messages through it. And so he's still considered a quadriplegic, but he can use his hands, he can move his chair, and he can actually, like, we went to a friend's house and he actually rolled his chair up to the side, stood up, and just fell into the pool, and, you know, was doing his exercises. So he's still has a long ways to go, but he was fighting for it, right? He's like, okay, I still have some movement, I have some sensation, and he drew from that. And I think everybody can. And I think that's why when somebody goes through something, people just being there, I think, is a lot of support. And I think when you're overwhelmed with that, you can always draw from that. And we have such a huge support network with me and my son. And so we're very lucky. And like, it's just the way it goes. My wife's dad passed away 2 years before she did. And sometimes the universe just works in weird ways. Mm-hmm. Like, we were going to get a dog and pick it up on December 23rd for our son. But the litter, we went to, obviously, like, breeder or whatever. And but the dog did not have the litter that they wanted to. So we did not get a dog. But like, we still have a dog left over from the last litter, which was born on September 11th, which was mine and my wife's anniversary.
Oh, what a weird day to have
and
this anniversary.
We picked the dog up on sort of the 2nd year death anniversary of her dad. So then my wife ended up passing away just over a month later, and that dog is like helping my son because he loves that thing so much, right? Mm-hmm. So it's weird how it's just weird. Like, sometimes things like that happen. I think sometimes we're pretty busy where we miss those little tiny things where things just happen for a reason. And you're like, why did it happen like that? And you got to take that as a win, as a little blessing, because it does help, right? So
yeah, it's strange. I've only just started, I've been fired a couple times from, gigs that I really liked, like the radio show. I made fun in 610 of Grape and Wine, and well, that did not go so well. It was one of my best segments, though. It was funny. I was like, when I listened to my last show on terrestrial radio, I'm really proud of it. I struggle with what I produce here for whatever reason. It's a totally different animal, though. And then canceled from YouTube. Started making some decent money. Canceled for no good reason. Crushed again.
Yeah.
The station did something because I had a synergy. I had, the media credentials, the newsroom, the 3 stations in one building. I loved the whole experience of that radio business. And I had a show at CHSC back in the day too. And then I get canceled from YouTube. I'm like, now what? It was my only income, pretty much. I was selling real estate here and there. And then I got fired from that. And that's like I said to you today, how hard it is to get fired from a broker in real estate? Like, they keep on the slugs no matter what they do, but you get political and you have a big mouth and you call people names. Yeah, sometimes people just don't want to be associated with you. But then, I was given a little bit of hope by a friend of mine that built me the website that I'm working on so that I can broadcast without censorship. And just then I started going, like, even after I got fired from 610, I was like, well, if you want to be anyone in this field, you're going to have to get fired a few times. And I kept telling 610 when I was there, I'm like, I want you, my goal is to be fired by you guys 3 times. Right? Like, I'll come back, you can fire me. And it was kind of a joke, but yeah, I started seeing it as like a blessing. I'm not comparing myself to CERN, but he was fired from a bunch of gigs before he did anything good. Now he's an apologist, I think, for free speech. But yeah, to look back at your blessings and go, oh yeah, so God wanted me to go through this for a reason. And oh, by the way, maybe stronger. And look at all these blessings that were built into it, because sometimes you can't see them for years. You call it the universe, like I say, God, whatever. Everyone's got their oversoul, whatever. But I think the majority of people believe there's something after this life, and that there's like a power that's bigger than us that controls things somehow, or so how has, again, your son's name?
Riley.
So how have you kept him from spiraling downward in bitterness? Because it's so easy. You lose your mom, that gives you bragging rights to be angry. Like, I had mine for 61 years. I'm still angry that she's not around. I mean, I'm not taking it out on people, but I don't have a 8-year-old or 10-year-old's mind either. So how has he handled it, and how have you kept him on the straight and narrow, because it's so easy for him to go, fucking, I'm on drugs, I'll start breaking into houses, or, you know, and sometimes good parents are not, you lose them, you know? So how have you kept him on the path?
He was a good kid to begin with.
Yeah,
like,
so
he's always
lucky.
had a big heart, so it wasn't like I don't know if there's any secret to it or whatever. For me, I just listen to him, and I try not to. There's a lot of talking.
Mm-hmm.
So even as a young kid, he's really good. He knows not to lie. He knows that's like, you know what, if you do something, I'll tell you what, you're not going to get in trouble for it. But if you lie about it, like, this isn't like you lose like a video game or a toy for a week or a day. Like, I'm usually pretty hardcore. Even when he was young, it's like, if you don't do this, then you're going to lose out for a month. I'm just going to go big right off the hop. So see what you do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's always been like, okay, I don't want to lose it for that long. so he's always been really good, but like we've never really had to worry about anything. So he's always been honest, and he's honest with his feelings, and sometimes he clams up, but it's just allowing him when he's angry to be angry. So you're allowed to be angry. Just make sure, like, you also have to remember the good. And like, my goal is to take time off and help him with this, for us to really strengthen our communication, and to try to give him a good, clear mind, so that when he's in college or university, he's not sitting there drunk one night, is overwhelmed by an emotion of his mom, and then he makes a mistake that he has to pay for. And so my goal is to try to just, and we talk about Adrian, like, we talk about her in such a positive light, because she was such a positive person. So he knows the values of what his mom stood for, and he knows the value of what we stood for as a couple, and he knows what I stand for. So, and again, we have a great support network, and a lot of friends, and like, just a lot of family. So it's
so
really
tell
good.
me a little bit about her, because like I said, I was a customer of hers at the massage studio. Thank God for Christy. I was with Christy before she went to your wife's place. But yeah, just tell me a little bit about Adrian, and when you met her, and like how you got rolling. And did you meet her in town here?
Yeah, I actually met her. I saw her a couple times, and would always try to like put out the vibe or something. She would see me,
put a vibe out.
And which I don't really think caught her eye.
Never works.
Right. So it was and so we met on July 1st, like, actual first time we talked and whatnot. So it's safe to horribly say that there was fireworks, but
cheesy.
Yeah, extremely. Like, that's like the worst you could possibly get, I imagine. So we just started dating, and then I never grew up with my dad. He left when I was 2. My brother was 6 months old, and my sister was like 4. And so he was never a part of our life. And he worked at GM, lived in St. Catharines, but wanted nothing to do with us. And for some reason, that really affected me. Whereas, I don't want to. You kind of feel abandoned a bit, right? There is effects from that. So I always looked at relationships and be like, I just want to do common law marriage, because I don't ever want to get married, and I would try to push serious relationships off as much as possible.
Phobia.
Yeah, just get close, back away, and so I met my wife, and that was kind of like that for a little bit, and then I was like, what am I doing? And 11 months after I met her, we bought a house together. And then I wanted to marry her, so I was like, I'm gonna marry you. And then we just went through that. And then she went to Western. She has a bachelor in science, and then she went and did massage therapy, and she's I guess what you would call a science nerd. Was really smart, loved school. I was the opposite, where I'm not going to say not smart, but I didn't really enjoy school, and I didn't put forth an effort. And our son rides right down the middle. He doesn't like school, but he gets A's all the time.
Wow.
So it's like
how about the businesses? Were you guys involved in each other's businesses, or?
Yeah, she was my support. Like, when I had left the Peninsula Ridge Winery after being the chef there, and I didn't like the politics of work.
Really?
Well, because I was like, I think we could be like we could be making money, we could be doing more of this, we should be more of that. And I felt, in my mind, I was like, if we keep doing this, the doors aren't going to be open for a while. Like, the structure has to change. Oddly enough, a year after I left, or 2 years, the doors closed. And and so I was like, I'm going to go out on my own. So I took a place that already had an exhaust hood where I'd have to spend the money on that. I wasn't able to get a liquor license. So it was, hey, if you're going to go into debt, like go into debt with the least amount of money and try your stuff out. And because of where it was, the rent was fairly inexpensive. And for me, it was, if it didn't work out as a restaurant, then I can just go do a catering thing and have a plan B and a plan C. To me, it's risk or calculated risk. And I'd rather be calculated. So she was a huge support in that. She was always like, yeah, you got to go do it. You have to do it. And then when I was working late and not being home at much because her boy was only 6 months old when like I actually took over this lease, she would leave notes around the house, you're doing a good job. So I'd get home at like 11 or 12. She'd be like, you're doing such a good job. Keep it up. We love you. And it was just so supportive.
Wow.
And that's what I really was drawn to her about. Like when I first met her, was she checked off all the boxes that I needed as a person, like different boxes checked for different people. But she was just a naturally genuine good person. Like she would never get angry. She was, which her being with me, that's a necessity.
She got a sister?
No,
not for you.
But it's no, she was, and so she was just very supportive. And then she was actually massaging at the Bugsy's Plaza, right where Dr. Ron Fast was for, and so she was the massage therapist for Dr. Ron Fast. And then when he left, she was like, should I take over this lease? And I was like, I think you should. And she's like, can I do this? And I was like, yeah. And then eventually, after cancer was in remission, the place on Linwell Road became available. And it was one of those things where it was a doctor's office, so it was paint and move rating. Really? Because all the rooms were already there. Reception area was there. Everything's there. So again, she's like, should we do this? It's like, oh, you should totally do this. And it was a lateral move cost-wise overhead.
Wow.
So
she had a detached building with parking and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was great. It's a great location.
And we just live right down the street. So
do you?
Yeah, we had bought in Thorold, and then we had moved to St. Catharines and just close to the south of Lakeshore, not really the north end, but somewhat. And and then I purchased the building on Russell Avenue, which is now going to be the new place that I'm opening up.
Was that multiple offers on that place when you bought it? Was it the hot real estate market? Because I wonder if I know that place.
The one on Russell Ave?
Yeah.
Actually, both places were pretty lucky. No, there was not a lot of offers on that one. The Linwell one, we saw, Adrian drove by and she saw the realtor hammering the sign into the ground. She pulled over to the side of the road.
That's how it's supposed to happen.
And I said, call him. She called. He just left. He came right back. We sat there. He talked to the doctor. It was done in 2 seconds.
Come on.
Yeah. And
the doctor was probably just happy to hear that it was going to another medical professional.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't know, but it was one of those things where it just works out. Like her lease was coming due, I think 120 days at the sort of Bugsy's Plaza there, and once, I think within 90 days, they're like, okay, well, you have to renew for X amount of years in the contract or whatever. And I kept telling him, like, why don't you ask them what you want to rent for? And they're like, no, they said they have time. And I was like, well, it just worked out that way. And for Russell Avenue, that building was pretty dilapidated. It was a complete gut.
Okay.
So new roof.
Are you handy with any of that stuff, or you got good connects?
Some of the stuff I can do, some stuff I can't. Like electrical, yeah, I can change like light fixtures and stuff like that.
So how much of the labor you figure you were taking on yourself? Half of it, or?
No, less than that.
Okay.
Just because some stuff I can't do. Yeah. But it was, so these people had this place listed for, I think it was $125,000.
Really?
And I went and offered $75,000. just because it needed a new roof. It needed,
and how many years
furnace was roached. This would have been 2014.
Okay. So you had it a while.
So that was like September, and they said, well, we'll go down to 110. I said 85. Like, everything has to be replaced. Everything. And you couldn't even use the doors. Like, there was nothing of use. It was take it down to the studs. The insulation was like
knob and tube.
Yeah. And so they said no. I walked away, and then the following February, after September, they had it listed for 110. So I offered 85.
Ruthless.
They came down to 100, and we settled on 90.
Wow.
Just because they wanted to finally get rid of it. It was one of the toilets had busted in the bathroom because they didn't turn off the, properly. Yeah, and it was complete gut.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was not good.
So how much money you got in it now as far as improvements goes?
To me, it was a fair price because you were just paying for the property, and with what I've put into it, I would say that with the 90 plus what I've put into it, it'd probably be around 220, 230, which was probably around the going rate for a building
back then of that quality.
Yeah. So
and now it's double that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it was a fair market. Like, I wasn't trying to rip them off.
No,
it was a debt.
And you did the right thing. You walked away, no hard feelings, and then they came back and said, "Okay." You feel guilty if you snake it from someone. You make them take your deal under pressure because it might not come back again. But they had their dance, and then it didn't come back again. And then 6 months later, they're coming back to you. So that's what you got to do it.
Yeah.
But when you don't feel your neck and go, no, because. A guy like you or me, you take advantage of somebody on the price of their home, and you're just like, oh, geez, I'm going to have a hard time sleeping tonight. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I've ripped them off at some level, but that's the way it's supposed to happen, And you go, this is what it's worth to me. If we can do a deal, great. If not, see you later.
And it's not cheap. The HVAC was $16,000. Wow. The roof was 72 because it was it was tile on cedar shake. Like,
so the stripping.
So they had to reboard everything, and then like 10 plus for electrical, 10 plus for plumbing, like over 5 for windows, like 3,000 for doors. Like, this is all new everything.
Yeah,
like, you're just talking a whole new everything.
So is the bungalow?
Yeah, honestly, it's just
And good commercial zoning or legal non-conforming use?
Oh, it was already commercial zoned. It was an old Heinz appliance store, and then it was a little variety store. So, and then there was the access to the basement was a walk down,
right? And
the retaining wall was caved in. So how the city wanted it done, that was a $25,000 expenditure because the building's only 16 feet by 50. So to put stairs on the inside would be, you're using a lot of square footage.
Mm-hmm.
So it was to go down on the outside, which needed to be replaced, and that's
code for that is a big deal.
Yeah. So,
and if you don't have the excavators or no guys, that's a big deal. My buddy just did a walkout on his, but he did most of the work himself. Like, he poured the stairs literally himself, type of thing. So
like it's a
big deal.
It's the way it goes. So, but you can't really do anything about it. So some people are like, "You got it for that," and it's like, yeah, but it was a fair price.
Yeah,
it was a fair price.
Especially, you had to put double what you bought it for in to repair it, to get it back to even regular use.
So it is what it is. But
so tell us what it is. What's the name?
I'm calling it the tangerine tortoise. I'm kind of being lazy. Like,
now that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's same
Blue
logo,
turtle,
different color.
Like, just so, let's see. Let's go here. Display no camera. We can go over here for a second. Here's the Blue Turtle logo. Okay. The tangerine tortoise. Okay, yeah. So yes, see, a little bit lazy. A
little bit lazy.
Put your energy into your food, dude. I'm good with it. You can you plagiarize yourself all you want. I'm fine with it. Tangerine tortoise, cool. Well, and what are you doing?
I'm calling it a neighborhood eatery, but it's going to be just familiar foods but done differently.
Okay, so all day?
Right now I'm just gonna, during COVID, it just makes sense to open up at, I might just do Wednesday to Saturday from 4 till 9.
Okay, so a dinner place.
Right, it'll be licensed, which is why I'm calling it a different name, which is actually a name that Adrian had picked out when we first were talking about it. She's
for the new place.
Yeah, because I was gonna have 2 places, and she was like, "What about the tangerine tortoise?" And I was like, "I kind of like it."
She's a little cheeky, huh?
Yeah, so I was like, "I really like that," and like we would just always talk about things, and yeah, so. And it was,
so no breakfast and lunch. Then you're going away from what your what the Blue Turtle was, because you weren't open for lunch there at all, were you? You're closed.
There was lunch, but it didn't make up. It only made up maybe 3 to 4% of our actual business, though.
Oh, did you do a lunch or did you do breakfast still too?
We did lunch, and sometimes I tried different things. Right, like I had. I remember one time we had 5 or 6 lunch items on there, but again, people would just come in and not order it. So it's like, why am I having this? And working on all the prep, and people just dictate what you do sometimes, and breakfast was their thing. So, and there's a lot of breakfast spots right now. Like there's a lot of breakfast spots.
Yeah, you don't want to be in competition with those guys now, because it became a fashionable. Well, there's a need for it. People like go to well, not very often, but it's a $50 breakfast, man. Like for 2.
Yeah.
Like, and worth it, I guess, but you still got to eat lunch.
Yeah. And breakfast is a different, it's a different sort.
Used to be $6.95 plus coffee. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And getting used to a $25 breakfast or whatever, it's probably with tip or whatever, was never that much at Blue Turtle, but man, that,
cost of goods.
And you changed the way I ate breakfast.
Oh,
like
good,
lobster scrambled, man. I'm like, the day I went off the menu, well, it didn't matter because you'd still make it for me. But I'm like, he's got, he'll do it for you.
You always have a side pork belly with it too, if I'm not mistaken.
I never had pork belly before.
So
and this place on Victoria Avenue, which I knew his name, another nice guy. I go in there, I'm like, he says, you know what you want? I go, yeah. Where is it? Where's green eggs and ham? Oh, we took off the menu. I'm like, dude, like, that's the only thing I eat here. Like, well, I can't even do it for you because I don't get the specialty ham. It was like, and that lobster scramble just nah. And now, what's her name does a pretty nice job of it as well.
Yeah, she does a great job of it.
Maddie,
yeah, Maddie does a good job.
Yeah.
She does really. She puts her heart into it.
Yeah, and it's nice to see, she birthed a place. I can't imagine how risky that was for her. I don't know what type of backing she had, but, she didn't look like a girl that, was ready to lease a commercial spot and open her own restaurant. But, through your leadership and inspiration and help, like you assisted her a lot too. I remember going there and she says, "Oh yeah, I took all his cutlery and place settings, and you see that over there? Yeah, that's Rob's." I'm like, oh wow, like that just filled me up so much from the standpoint of like, you didn't need to do that for her, You
want people to succeed. I'm a strong believer in our community, and I see Niagara as different than other people see Niagara. Like I see every municipality fighting for whatever they're fighting for monetarily wise. I kind of believe in a bigger picture of a Niagara sort of tourism area. The wineries run one way, breweries run another. We have distilleries that are on their own. No one's combining these places, and everyone's sort of doing the same. There's a couple places that do things uniquely different, but they're not very many. So today I was actually painting the front door at the Russell Avenue property there, and a fellow came by and he said, "What kind of food are you going to have?" I was like, "Well, it's going to be familiar but different." He's like, "Where are you going to have French fries?" I'm like, "There's no exhaust hood, so there's no deep fryer. There's going to be no French fries, but I will have a potato something." And he's like, "Oh, really?" And I was like, it's I'm not going for convenience. Like, I'm not. It's
not a fast food.
I'm not doing what everybody else is going to do. Like, it's. I see all these posts on Facebook. It's like, who has the best chicken wings? I don't know. They all get their chicken wings from the same place, and if they're hot, they use the same oil for their deep fryer, and they use the same Frank's Red Hot sauce, and use the same carrots and celery and the same Kraft blue cheese. So I don't know who has the best wings. I don't know.
I can tell you it's Fat Louie's.
Go to Fat Louie's.
Good wings there, man. Yeah,
they do. They're big.
And they're big.
And I think that's the best part is I think if you go to a place with small wings, it's like, okay, they're a little dried out. But it's there's just little subtle differences, right? Like people maybe brine their wings right beforehand and kept them juicy because how good is a chicken wing the next morning?
Not good.
It's dried out.
So you brine it in sugar and salt for an hour or two before you deep fry them?
Yeah, like even overnight,
that's
24
what we do
hours.
For the turkeys.
Yeah.
No, I don't do a turkey
100%.
without 24 hours submersed in a brine.
And if you did the same with chicken wings, would you have juicier chicken wings?
Yeah.
So
well, you can't cook the chicken wings in a plastic bag, though. That's how I'm doing my chicken now. I can't do a turkey without the bag. Like, it's just so juicy taking it out of the bag. You gotta brown it up and do whatever, but yeah, I'm a huge fan of the bag.
And that's the difference of things. So it's who has the best nachos? I don't know. They're all using the same chips. They all have the same cheese on it. There's like, okay, sour cream, salsa. You never get enough of it, so you always have to order more. It's like, and to me, it's who's doing things slightly different to really. That's familiar with people, but gets people to try something slightly different, which is, I guess, what the Bleu Turtle was doing for breakfast, was to make it the same as what people are experiencing, but slightly different. For example, like an omelet. A lot of omelet, you go to the $6.95 breakfast places, it's a flat top. You put an omelet, it goes everywhere. It's rubbery. They roll it, they throw it on your plate. Whereas I would do everything in a pan. All my eggs were done in a single pan, and the textural difference is so far apart.
You've got thickness, which means fluffiness,
you're constantly moving your eggs in it before it has time to set. You're constantly moving it, and then it finally binds, and then you put your stuff in and roll it over. So you're using the same amount of eggs, and your omelet looks twice as big, but the mouthfeel going through it, texturally, it's a lot different. It's not as rubbery.
4-cheese omelet you used to do was magnificent, man.
But that was 4 cheese, bacon, eggs. Like there was it's the same as everybody else is doing, but the technique is done slightly different, just to create a different overall experience texturally. So, and
then you get creative with the cheeses too, which is way creamier than just a mozzarella off the shelf or whatever like that. Yeah. What was you using?
It was, for those cheeses, I was Asiago, goat, aged cheddar, and brie.
Brie, that's the one. That's where you know a brie when you feel it on your tongue, even if it's melted. You're like, ooh, that's sweet.
Yeah,
that's the brie that really set that thing off.
So it's just doing those little tiny things differently that set things apart, which is what I'll be doing at the new place.
Cool.
To make a short story as long as possible, but it's
thank you.
Yeah,
gives me more time to insert commercials. So a couple weeks, you figure?
Yeah, I'm hoping for. I'm just because
you said a couple weeks here a couple weeks ago, so I don't want to end up in a couple weeks vortex.
Couple weeks. I'm definitely opening up next week. After Thanksgiving. Cool.
Are you having a soft open for invited guests only type of thing?
I'm gonna just, because of COVID, I was allowed 36 seats. Okay. But with COVID, I now have some dividers, and I'm doing 24, but that's 4 tables of 4 tables of 2. So if I get a bunch of 2s, it's 16 people.
Okay.
So for me, a soft opening would be, I think I can do it just where I don't have to really do a soft opening. I'll just let people come and check it out.
And you're going to have beer and wine?
Yeah. And maybe a couple cocktails.
How about, you going to bring in any music or?
The place is pretty small.
Okay.
Again, it's only 760 square feet. It's
you're just going to concentrate on the food
for right now.
Yeah.
It'll hopefully have a good. The interior is pretty good. It's got a good warm feeling to it.
Nice. Cool. And what's the specialty going to be?
Oh, that I don't know.
No,
that I don't know.
You don't have a vision for this is going to be my anchor of the menu. Are you going to do steak?
There's going to be like your beef, lamb options. Like I used to do these goat cheese and spinach soufflés. So okay. I'm really keen on doing that with a lamb shoulder on it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And the price margins the same, or the entree would be kind of in track with the Bleu Turtle pricing wise, or are you going to have to go up because you're going to?
Go up just to the price of I keep my cost of goods at their set percentage. Yeah. So it just depends on how much the actual thing costs. I just got a cough here, so excuse me.
All dried out, eh?
Yeah, I get cotton mouth. Like, especially when I'm talking like this, when I get nervous, it's just like...
You're not nervous. You don't seem nervous, are you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I feel I should have like a
you know what? I give you
ice
props,
cube in my
Rob,
mouth.
because you know what? I've been working on you, a little bit. Like back in the day, I wanted to bring you on 610. You're like, no, I'm not that guy. That's not my thing. I
have a hard time talking about myself.
Yeah, and so thanks for stepping outside of your comfort zone. And initially, I think you were like, "What? For what? Like, no, what's anybody want to hear me talk about?" And didn't take long before you're like, "Yeah, I could get enthusiastic about this," because having fear and being scared and stuff like that, all just selfish feelings that we're just taking on for ourselves. We're not really present to like, wow, like I could help someone. You know what I mean? Just your story. And that, I appreciate the humility of you saying, well, like who really cares about my story? I cared enough to, because I don't know the whole story. I didn't know Adrienne. I may have met her here and there, but I wasn't, I knew her business. I certainly knew when she passed on, and I was a regular customer of yours. But I just found like I knew kind of like what happened, but I don't know anybody that's even close enough to you to say, oh yeah, he's doing all right or whatever. So I figure, well, come on the show. Like I can get caught up, and I've been finding myself like you were one of several guests since the lockdown, not because I wasn't having anyone in, just try and get anyone to leave the house,
Right.
So I've had a few, and I've got interviews all week. I had Zoom yesterday. I've got Jennifer Lynn coming in tomorrow. She's going to play 3 songs and talk about type of and she used to play at my church, so she's a talented songwriter. And I met for coffee the other day for the first time, but I just figured like I'll get to know you here, and then people that are like, well, yeah, what's Rob been up to? Because they don't have your phone number, and they can't just call you up and say, hey, what's happening? So at the very least, spend some time here, and then I don't know if it helps out any as far as promotions goes, but you can't get too much PR, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I hope that somebody comes in and says, hey, yeah, I saw you on Jimmy's show, like, way to go.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known type of thing, because let's face it, we're horrible marketers, when it comes down to you're a chef.
Yeah.
You're a talented chef, and I'm sure you got many other talents, but promoting our own businesses is our greatest strengths a lot of the time. So
it's hard to see how you come off sometimes, right? Like okay, well, I'm just a guy, do goofy things like everybody else, right? Like I find a lot of humor in a lot of things. There's a lot of things I don't say because maybe it's the funniest. People just don't usually get it. I always have a long-standing joke with friends that like every time I say something I think is funny, it's just crickets after. Like everyone's just staring at me, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm pretty much used to
it's on
this.
the delivery, bro.
Yeah, which I've obviously
you gotta work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
so cool, man. So a couple. What's the date? Do you have a hard date?
I was hoping for, since everything shuts down on the Monday, I was hoping for Wednesday or Thursday, but I might just push for.
I mean, everything's shutting down.
Well, with like Thanksgiving, like on Mondays, you can't go and grab food and stuff like that, so it pushes things back a day, right?
Oh, okay.
So if I was going to open up Wednesday, regularly I'd be able to get my stuff on Monday, do my prep, what I got to do, but opening up for Wednesday after getting everything on Tuesday because Monday's closed because of the holiday, you can't really, it puts a lot of pressure on it. So I'd rather just make sure I'm getting everything right.
How you set for staff?
Oh, good. I have some
people. I guess you're not bringing Maddie back.
No, she said she would work for sure. Yeah, she's like, I'll help you.
Because she's closed at those hours anyways.
Yeah, she's like, I'd love to come and help you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we still get together and we still talk, like even with the other, like.
That would be cool to have a familiar face like Maddie around, because she was with you there and then, started her own place. And then, that would be like coming home. Like if I walk, you want familiarity, even if you're going to a shop, we're like, hey, Hey, I know you.
Yeah. Well, she's a taskmaster. That's what really made the turtle really good, as well as everybody adds something to everything. Like, not only just like having great work ethics, but just Maddie's it.
What was the other girl's name? Was it the
Eileen?
Eileen.
Yeah.
You stay in touch with her? She's going to be in the new staff?
Yeah, we chat all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
she's a solid girl.
Yeah, it's everybody. Even even some of the cooks I have, one just came back from BC. We were chatting, and like, yeah, we're just always doing whatever you can, right? Like, yeah. It's a good bond.
You do a lot of mentoring behind the counter? You probably don't see it as much as that, but I mean, anybody that's standing beside you's got to be grateful just for the opportunity to mentor with someone that's got the talent and experience that you've got.
It's like anything. Some people have it, some people don't, and you can't make people want to do it. They have to want it from within. So when I would talk to people, be like, listen, what do you think about that? Do I have to tell you? Do you see it yourself? And there's times at the Turtle where we would sit there, I would just tell the girls, or be like, okay, like, food's gonna be 20-25 minutes coming out of here. Can you let the customers know right away? Because there's nothing worse than people with food getting upset. Yeah, especially
because you go to an eatery when you're hungry, so you're already hangry, I guess they call it. Yeah, and if you know right up front, then you can make your own decision, right?
Well, communication is integral in anything, for any company, any relationship. However, communication is the key. And if you can sit there and create good communication with your customers, then they have an understanding. And usually it wouldn't be 25 minutes. It would just be a hump, right? It would just be everything just combines. You get logjam and then you get through it. But people, like, the staff took it good. The apprentices took it well. And they'd be like, okay, like, I have to accept it from me. Like, you have to want that. And so they took it. They're the ones who did it. All I did was say something. They're the ones who lived it. So they're the ones who put the effort in for it. Cool. So it's just as much on their back as it is with maybe me just giving some tools.
You're going to have a flexible menu, like different things all the time, and rotating stuff? Because at the Blue Turtle, it was kind of, and Maddie's picked up on this tradition too. You just put it up on the chalkboard, and the chalkboard's different every time. All I wanted to see was scramble lobster,
Yeah, I'll have to stay. This is definitely a different sort of way to look at it for me than what the Turtle was.
Okay. Because a little bit more of a permanent menu?
Well, I wasn't really getting a lot of business from surrounding homes.
Okay.
So there was a large part of everyone sort of congregating there, whereas I am such a very large residential area, and all sorts of like income earners within that area, that I need to be able to be sort of approachable from that side.
What, but from the financial end of
it? From people understanding what the food is.
Oh.
And then, which does have effects on financial aspect of it, and then also being able to be creative enough to bring in some outside people who want to try something that maybe nobody else has. And so it's trying to, but not having a big menu because it is a small space, and trying to really figure it out. So it's trying to come up with some staples and then maybe a rotating menu on the side of something, so like a little half and half. It's a whole different way to look at it, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. So we'll see what happens.
Cool. Who's helping you out?
Well, I've got a friend's son who actually is an airline pilot, lives 2 streets over.
Nice.
And since he's not flying, he does have his smart serve, so he's gonna come and serve for me because he needs a job right now. He got laid off until they open back up. So he's gonna help out with serving. I should have everything in the kitchen done. I'm doing things a little differently, whereas again, I don't have an exhaust hood or a deep fry, and there's no open pan cooking.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's just using the new technology with ovens and things that is what I'll be putting it out with.
Really?
Yeah, so it's a bit more, it's more prep, less execution.
Really?
But the food will be, there's no compromise.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a whole different ball game.
Wow, no, open pan. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it saves everything.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, because you have to clean your hoods if even if you're not a busy place, you have to clean them at least once a year. That's $1,000 expense. Then you have to get your fire suppression system looked at twice a year, which is $150 each time. So if you have a deep fryer, you're constantly changing oil, then you have a bin. It's there's so much to it.
Really?
And then
just
you're
for the fryers, eh?
Yeah, well, just because you need that exhaust hood, which is expensive. So you can spend your money on the exhaust hood and get really cheap equipment. Like you can get a 6-burner gas range for $1,500. You can pick up a big deep fryer for $1,000, but your hood is your main expense along with the fire suppression system. Whereas this new system is like, you don't spend the money on the hood, but you're spending money on your cooking equipment.
You got a website up for the new place yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I thought I had the domain already, but I don't know.
You haven't even got the domain yet?
Well, I thought I had it. And I was like, maybe that was master business license.
What happened to the what?
Well, I don't know. I thought I had it. I had a couple things on GoDaddy, and I was like, where is that? So I just got to register it. And
okay.
Go grab it.
All right. Well, maybe we need to give Bergsma a show. I don't know if he's taking on clients now with that kind of stuff, but I just saw him. My son, the Hurricane, just played a play. You remember the old Detroit Motor Inn, Lundy's Lane and Town Line Road?
Yeah.
It used to be a strip club, or Dan's had it for a while, and Ashak Morani owned it at one time. Me and Steve Petreka from the Hideaway.
Really?
Ran that one time, and anyway, I didn't know where it was. I drove to the freaking drive-in because it's called the drive. I don't know. They call it a drive-in, but no, they got an outdoor stage and just cars. Like they were actually coming by and saying, like, get back to your car, get in your car, like you could party in your car. But then it's right. Rain, and it's my son, the Hurricane. I need to jump up and down and dance. Right. You know, Roadways open for him, and Revive the Rose, and then Revive the Rose band from Welland, Andrew Kalanico, and then they opened for the Trews the next night. But it broke my heart because Hurricane's like, this is our last show of the year. Well, they would have had 50 shows this summer.
Right.
You know, if it wasn't for COVID. And that's how they make their living. Like, right. I mean, and it broke my heart to hear that they're, done for the year. But this has been a tough year for everyone, man.
It's, yeah, some people are having a hard go. Some businesses are flourishing. I know that Eileen, she works at a place that makes hand sanitizer, and I think they grew from 150 staff to 400. And so
Dylan's distillery, or
and there's Dylan's doing their thing. Like there's people making a go of it through this, but there's people who aren't, and the restaurants
some people have been wiped out. Thank God we don't have riots to worry about like in the States, man, because people are getting wiped out by riots. I was reading about this guy that was, he was in a vintage toy business. Well, they came in and took all his vintage. You don't rebuild a business like that. He spent his whole life going around collecting vintage toys, and then one day his ship just got looted and burned to the ground, and like he's done. He's finished, and that's why I come back. I said, I don't know if Jacob used to do a nice job with the social media and the marketing and the, on a professional level, but as a kind of like a sideline because he was busy with Hurricane.
Right.
So he had Danny at Blackbeard's. He did a lot of work with him for years. I can't remember what he charged per month, and it's not cheap. But hey, you only got to sell a couple plates to break even on that. A few plates, maybe many plates a month, but. Usually, I mean, that's where I don't know why anyone would advertise on the radio, in the paper, or anything now. It's just, there's no way to track it. At least you put it on Facebook. Like for the 2 weeks of your first opening, it's everywhere. Like you cannot get away from a Facebook ad if you saturate it properly. Everyone, doesn't matter if they're looking at a USA Today article or, a St. Catharines, don't read the St. Catharines Standard, the Standard art, it comes up. Like, and you can target the age, the demographic, the area. For instance, I used to work for Remax Garden City, Wayne Quirk's office, and now his son David is doing the SEO. Well, Wayne's kind of a dinosaur from the. Well, in a lot of ways, he's an older guy, right? So he doesn't have the charisma that comes through like a young model would, and so David can't convince him to hand it off to someone else, but he also couldn't convince him to do the digital marketing. He's always, phone book cover, the back of the phone book, dude, phone book. Like, you know, stop it. And with now, it doesn't matter what if I'm on Crowder's site on Facebook or whatever, there's Wayne Quirk, there's Remax Garden City, there he is again. It just, you know, even if I click, I don't want to see this ad anymore. I'm not sure I have with Wayne, but you can't get away from it. And that's the one thing about the digital marketing is you could track it immediately. You can target the people you want, the income, the sex, whatever, their marital status. It's really focused. But yeah, it's so much room to grow there. And if you don't know what you're doing there, which I don't, you know, Jacob or someone like him, it's, you know, it's nothing to pay him $100, you know, a month for a few months to get rolling and get the name out there. Because when you're new, man, it's make it or break it. And I know that a guy like you is certainly going to have a lot of word of mouth business, right? Because like for me, what fills me up other than the kids is like music. So if I drop a Theater Crisp, I went up north with a couple high school buddies of mine, and I only had a few discs in my car, so I brought them. Well, I put Theater Crisp in, and Jimmy Reed's like, dude, what's this? I go, Theater Crisp, you like it? Well, I got my vocal sample on one of the songs, so I really like that song, but it's one of their best songs too, right? So I'm really proud of it because I know these guys. Well, they wouldn't love it. They're like, hey, put it on again. Well, I'm fine with it because I love that album when they'd never heard it before. I sent Jimmy home with the album. I'm like, dude, this was given to me at the premiere by the band. You can have it. Like, it's,
that's awesome.
You know what I mean? Like, I've got it on my computer. At least I think I do. If not, I'll buy it from iTunes again. But I was just like, to send him, I sent him home with Theater Crisp and Aaron Berger. Aaron Berger and Blue Stars, his new stuff. And he's just so talented. But for me, that gift of like, here's a song and a group that you can love for years, decades now. Like, that's my biggest gift. And having guys in with you, you know, somebody saying, you know what, thanks for that. I didn't know about that. And you changed my mind on this. That's great. And, you know, you got to do it any way you know how and use your talents, right? But your talents are obviously your self-expressions through food. And God bless you, man, because you changed the way, you know, and you raised the standard for me on breakfast, right? So now, how come I can't remember that place on Victoria Avenue? It's crazy.
The name always escapes me.
I'm gonna find out what it is. Anyways, thank you, brother. It was really cool getting to know you, and I appreciate your time, Victoria. I'm gonna find this.
Well, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. I gotta get this. What the hell? I can't even spell. VICT. Have breakfast. Oh, that's Regina. I'm coming up with this. Reveille.
Okay, yeah.
Reveille brunch. So you're not competing with these guys anyways, but I called the other day. I'm like, dude, is green eggs and ham on the menu again? He's like, no, it's still. I know that instantly he was like, oh, you're that guy. And then I said, but at that time, when you open, he goes, oh yeah, we're open. I said, oh, awesome. And then before I was off the phone, he was like, takeout. Well, the guy I was with, he's like, dude, breakfast is not takeout. You don't take breakfast out. I go, dude, we can take it from the restaurant to my tailgate. We eat in the parking lot. How's that different? Oh no, it's not the same. It's not the same. Like, okay, whatever.
Right.
But okay, so we'll put this up. You don't have the website, but I'll just put your personal page up here. Here's Rob Berry. I'm on your fake book. Oh, I hate fake book. And hey, is the kid going to be helping you out?
Yeah, he's going to be there. He's not all the time, but he's gonna start.
You got a picture of him when he's really young as your
yeah.
Cool.
So he does a lot of chores around the house. He's really good with that. I don't have to ask him. He does everything he needs to do.
Awesome, man.
So I told him that he's going to be coming to help out. All right. And I just bribe him with food and he'll be all right with it. So
cool, man. All right. I love you, my brother. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
See, that was an hour and a half.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's 4:30.
That's crazy.
Nice job, brother.
Oh, thanks.
All right. Love you. Peace out. Thanks for watching. Share, like if you'd like, and